Okay, so let's get busy. Let me turn off my camera and make sure my screen sharing is happening. And let's get the screen sharing going on. Okay, so guys, I find that I like to start off with a little bit of news, but the news I have is a few weeks old. It's that McDonald's is closing many of its underperforming outlets inside of Walmart. Now, this is a very classical marriage where, Walmart, you've got about 100 million Americans who come in there weekly. That's a lot of people. And also, I think that, all the, it's a good question to ask is, are the Walmart customers also Amazon customers? Do people use both Amazon and Walmart? I know in our household, we've gone to Walmart hundreds of times. And I think ever since having children, I've been in and out of a Walmart. I never was out of Walmart before, but now I bought an iPhone at a Walmart. I've been to Walmart for my share, but I haven't been to Walmart in a number of years. And I think it's just a function of pandemic economics. But I have not been to a Walmart, but I think I have an Amazon order coming to my house every few days. My children haven't been to a toy store in years. Or maybe they have been just here and there, but their preference is to order everything over Amazon. So I wonder if there is the Amazon Americans and then there are the Walmart Americans. And I don't know if the Walmart Americans are using Amazon or if the Amazon people are going to Walmart. But I think if you're habituated to Walmart, then that's where you go to get your shopping done. And I think if you're habituated to Amazon, that's the way that you get your shopping done. I frankly had to learn to trust Amazon. I am one of the people who enjoy running out to do a little retail therapy, so it intrigues me very much that McDonald's is severing a relationship with several hundred. I forget how many restaurants it was. And I don't want to misquote them, so I won't. But to me, this is very interesting because I'm asking the question, is McDonald's going to deliver, in the future? When I look across the environment, I see tremendous, and I need to get control of my tabs here. I see tremendous sort of creative destruction that's the Schumpeterian idea where, you have kind of a creative destruction and the idea that certain industries move in and they displace existing industries, that is actively taking place kind of before our eyes. And I think when you see a classical relationship where you have McDonald's and Walmart sharing the same demographic, the same customer base, and they have a similar ethos. They want something fast, they want it cheap, they want it tasty, they want it convenient, they want to be able to sit, they want it family friendly. These are things that, Walmart is about availability, it's about economic accessibility, it's making nice things available to people, and doing so in a mass basis. These are things that McDonald's and Walmart share in common. So it intrigues me to think that somehow Walmart is losing the traffic. But it makes sense. It would make sense to me that there's less foot traffic going through the average Walmart and that maybe in those locations there's just less people. But also it means that McDonald's has made a decision where if you get a lease with Walmart, that they want you there for years. So for example, for the Walmarts where McDonald's left, there's Taco Bell moving in, there's Domino's Pizza moving in, there's Carl's Jr. moving in, the lesser restaurant chains are moving in to fill that void. But that intrigues me very much. And to me, I look at the way that my own family does things. They use DoorDash. And, my kids are the age where they appreciate a good McDonald's cheeseburger. I don't necessarily go for the McDonald's stuff, but that's okay. I find that the college kids start to turn their nose up at McDonald's, or the college kid, the high school kids are okay with McDonald's. Like, a good thing in McDonald's fries is good. Once they get to college, it's kind of a demographic, choice. Do the Chipotle people go to McDonald's? It's kind of a demographic separation, the segmentation. But I found that my wife during the pandemic would go and, go to get some McDonald's, and it would take her about 45 minutes to make her way through the drive-through. There were so many people going through the drive-through, and it was because McDonald's was one of the few places in town that was open, and that was the way it was for about 18 months. And so she found that she was turning to DoorDash. Now I find that my wife does not go to McDonald's anymore. She would prefer to spend the premium to have DoorDash delivered. And I find that I'm okay with that too, even though it's about $50 a meal, that's a lot, but it's taken the weight off of mom. And frankly, that is McDonald's role. It's for people with children, and mom, needs to get a hot meal together, something that people are going to eat, namely children, and adults with heart conditions. Just kidding. But DoorDash is a very interesting alternative. And I think what's happening is McDonald's is saying, well, could we sever our classical, McDonald's is saying, can we sever our classical relationship with Walmart and begin to admit that there is a future in delivering a hot McDonald's Happy Meal? And if you begin to consider the value proposition of McDonald's creating a delivery business, you're really onto something. Because I think that mom is under pressure. And if mom cannot get a fast meal for the family in the minivan, she, or, the guys that do that work too, the moms, the moms and dads out there won't be cruising into a McDonald's. They're going to think of other ways to do it. And so if you think of the profit margin involved with DoorDash, people are complaining about the fees, related to DoorDash. But what if McDonald's could build up their own delivery mechanism? Could begin to skim the profit off of, the equivalent of Uber Eats. Uber Eats is built on the principle of delivering McDonald's. So to me, I see a little bit I see a little bit of a customer relationship management on the horizon if McDonald's gets very serious about a delivery business, where they're customizing a delivery and people are finding that, maybe they create a membership with McDonald's. I see McDonald's as looking at DoorDash, looking at Uber Eats, and looking at Amazon itself and saying, well, Amazon is fundamentally in the customer relationship business, where it's all about customer, customer, customer. McDonald's cannot assume that the customer is going to come wandering in starving. And that is what they are saying by pulling out of Walmart, where the classical foot traffic is disappearing. They're undergoing demographic shift. Does that make sense? And they're also undergoing a lifestyle shift. And Walmart may not be the public square that it once was, especially in a reoccurring, endemic era. Now, decisions like this do not go lightly. But what we are speaking of this week is the business case for software and how to construct a business case for software. But when I look around, the best way to talk about business case is in the creative destruction happening within the economy. For example, right now we are asking the question, will people line up for 45 minutes at a McDonald's drive-thru? Is there a better way that is more profitable? Can we, for example, move from being a restaurant to being a food preparation company? And is there more value in preparing meals than being a restaurant? And I think that's the question that we're asking right now of this major public industrial entity. And I think it's a very good example of creative destruction. And it's also asking, well, what would McDonald's have to do? And I ask you guys this because you guys are smart and whatever you say matters. But let me ask you, what would McDonald's have to do in order to transition to a hybrid restaurant/meal preparation organization? And the answer lies somewhere in creating bespoke, custom-made software systems that facilitate the production of meals, maybe with artificial intelligence, like predictively ordering supply chain that would create the right meals at the right time in the right parts of the country. Like, for example, they order salsa in our part of the country. They don't order much salsa where I'm from in Michigan. They order filet of fish back in Michigan. They don't order filet of fish over here. It's just the way of the world. Now, if you guys are filet of fish guys, hey, more power to you. But, this is endemic to the way that, if you're going to live in Southern California, you're going to cook, Southwestern cuisine. And that's going to be different than Maine. Let's be clear. So, is there an artificial intelligence element to create the right meal? Is there going to be a mobile app and all of that goes along? You need 25 people to maintain a mobile app these days. Is there going to be a back office, kitchen kind of automation system that is going to be necessary in order to synchronize the delivery and the production of meals? Is there a way that we create a fleet of vehicles where, I think right now it's very viable for a person to be a Uber driver in the morning for 2 hours, then to be an Instacart driver in the middle of the day, and then to be a Lyft driver at the end of the day, and to be a Uber Eats person at the end of the day. I think a person could have a pretty full schedule that way. I imagine a couple of you have thought about that. I would say that my own kids, hey, think about being a driver. If you've got a car, I bet you could write the expenses off your taxes, So there would be a great deal of systems customization. So McDonald's, by pulling out of its classical marriage, for McDonald's to flirt with another suitor outside of Walmart is profound in my mind. And I have a sense that I'm going to be talking about the upshot of this for years. Now, I'll be the only one too. I'll be the only person, bugging my wife to talk about, honey, can you believe that Walmart and McDonald's have broken up in hundreds of locations? That's a big deal. It's an economic indicator. It's a moment of change. So what's happening is McDonald's is fashioning a business case to justify becoming a meal preparation company. And so I want to talk about that. Now, inside of the tech industry, there is a thing that's called the business motivation model. The business motivation model is the way that tech people get an MBA very quickly, where inside of the MBA, you take 2 years to really learn the philosophical modus operandi for businesses. And the way that we design software is taught to people in the same way that they design businesses. And the fact that so many software engineers have become, multi-million-dollar or even billion-dollar entrepreneurs overnight, it means that, the Mark Zuckerberg model, i.e. the creator of software, these people are now business leaders. And so it's become important to teach software developers business overnight. And in so doing, we've created the business motivation model. The business motivation model helps us to frame a business. If you're making a business case for something, that begins with identifying, well, what is the vision? What is your goal? I'm sorry, these icons are here. That's idiotic. I wish that wasn't happening. I wish I could turn off my Pinterest. I haven't been on Pinterest in a while. You can see how that happens. The business motivation model is a critical element for creating software, because you're asking, the software is going to become the business. Software is the business. Starbucks doesn't operate without its point of sale automation. Walmart does not operate without its point of sale automation. Amazon does not go without its apps. So what you have is an end and a means. And the end is a vision, and you have goals and objectives here. And you quantify your end in terms of your goal, in terms of a vision. And on the other hand, you have your means, which has to do with your mission. And your mission breaks into strategies and tactics, i.e. courses of action, and then directives, i.e. policies and rules. So the means are the way that you implement your vision. A vision is a picture of a perfect world, i.e. an Instacart, delivering food to people, delivering, groceries to people, changing the way that retail works, saving people hundreds of hours every year. That's the vision. The means, well, we bring it together through a mobile app that will join the drivers together. And so from there, we begin to look at the economic landscape. And we do so through a system called PESTLE, not PESTLE, but PESTLE. And it stands for the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and potentially the environmental context wherein you are working. Right now, the environmental context of McDonald's is that, businesses are emission producers. Restaurants they have legal, technological, social needs. Right now, if you do a pestle analysis on the McDonald's at Walmart, you find that, the political environment is shutting down foot traffic or is eliminating foot traffic. The legal environment is creating liabilities for organizations that did not prior exist. Technologically, the customer wants for hot food to be delivered to their doorstep. This is absolutely a fact of the matter. And social factors, well, DoorDash has a wonderful, Uber Eats has a wonderful brand, but McDonald's sees itself as one of America's cornerstone brands. And McDonald's does not like the fact that it has to hide behind DoorDash. You have to, intermediate. I imagine Carl's Jr., Taco Bell all wants to take away, Chick-fil-A, goodness gracious. They all want to take away the fees associated with DoorDash. DoorDash is doing great, but McDonald's naturally wants to intervene. Environmentally, that's not a historical driver, but, it's something that we can think about. If there's a carbon element to the smoke coming out of the back of a fry, then we're thinking about that. I think right now we're working in a society that is putting, if people are not going to commute to McDonald's, then their environmental impact is that they're going to have to drive cars around all day in order to make the meal come to them. I don't think that there's any carbon impact, if you are, having people deliver. But, if you think about the social impact, well, the moms of the world are going to save a couple hundred hours this year. That's pretty good. And I imagine people will want to patronize you if you're going to save them time and you're going to deliver a quality product to their doorstep. Now, the next component when you're delivering you're delivering a business case for doing new systems is you're going to do I'm going to remove Pinterest from Chrome. Sorry about that. So that we no longer have those Pinterest things there. Sorry. Now, the SWOT, you guys are very familiar with SWOT, and I think that SWOT is a wonderful thing for folks to talk about because you have the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And, if you do a SWOT analysis on the DoorDash versus McDonald's model, you have technically DoorDash is proven to America that you can get very good food delivered to you, that it's the same, maybe even a superior experience, where my kids have the food they want, but they also have the 70-inch Samsung TV. Getting McDonald's at home, that's kind of, that's worth investigating. So there's a strength in that you have the food. You have a weakness in that you depend upon DoorDash. You don't have that. DoorDash has the brand. DoorDash is somewhat of a food aggregator. As we've said before, they're a food integrator. They're a successful brand because you don't have to create a separate app in order to go to McDonald's. You can have one app to rule them all. It's a brilliant idea. But therein lies that issue where if the opportunity is that McDonald's, they have a weakness, which is they do not have their own mobile app that has any merit. For example, my wife does not have as far as I know, a McDonald's app. She has a lot of apps on her phone, but she does not, as far as I know, have a McDonald's app. But an opportunity there is creating a customer relationship app where maybe my wife can earn some cash rewards in being a consistent customer. Currently, I think my kids go to McDonald's at least once a week, and they order via DoorDash. But I think that creates an opportunity that McDonald's has never had, which is to have somewhat of a membership where, frankly, I'd like a button where I press a button and I get the McDonald's meal that I'm accustomed to. That's a whole new opportunity for Starbucks. And when you think about that weakness, suddenly you have an idea for a system. By undergoing these steps, you have a vision where people have a much healthier relationship with a much more personal, much more individual relationship with McDonald's. McDonald's can do exceptional things food-wise. I don't like to be a snob when it comes to McDonald's. I don't eat there. But I also believe that they have a very, very high-quality corporate kitchen where they're trying to create interesting cuisine. And I can see them trying to do that. And I give them credit for that. The leadership there has tried to create a quality food experience, that's fast and democratic and clean. And then, of course, the threats. Well, McDonald's, needs to realize that they are in a crowded sector and that they need to, they're full of other people that would love to take their place. So there are other people, does Carl's Jr., if Carl's Jr. creates a very compelling ordering experience over a mobile app, they ideally, a Carl's Jr. wants to be the Delta Airlines of mobile apps, where if you go to Delta Airlines, they have a superb mobile experience, where I would definitely use Delta because I can literally plug my Apple Watch and travel, America through, my watch. With Delta Airlines, they have that good of an app integration experience. So therein, you realize that there is a real software business case for McDonald's to go after new bespoke IT components. But they're going to have to do it big, and they're going to have to do it right, and they're going to have to test it. And that's kind of that software development lifecycle is what we're talking about this week. It's something I know about very intimately. So when I talk about SDLC with students, I really have to stress that I think creative IT projects right now are running at about a failure rate of about 75%. And that's a big improvement, but there is a right way to conceive of software systems that will matter. You get no credit for doing a mobile app that no one will use. You really have to integrate the best that your business school education has to offer in order to make software that matters, that ultimately gets consumed. It's a very, very labor intensive, very high value component of the economy. So after you do your SWOT and you recognize where you're at, you need to do a Porter's 5 Forces, where you undergo the supplier's bargaining power. You need to talk about, the hamburger meat, which McDonald's has reinvented, the rivalry with Carl's Jr.'s Taco Bell's, the threat that other people could do Taco Bell instead of you. I think it's sacrilege to not go to a Mexican food store. Mexican food is about street food. It's about fresh. You cannot microwave. You cannot allow a bit of Mexican food to be transported in a car. You need to be there where the grill is hot, where it's some of the most sumptuous cuisine in the world because of the fact that it's made right there. Julia Child did not call one of Santa Barbara's classical street food outlets, Superia Taqueria. Julia Child called Superia Taqueria the greatest restaurant on planet Earth. If you've ever been to Superia, I think you get food on pieces of paper there. I think they have plastic baskets at Superia. I think it's great that Julia Child had such neat things to say about Superia. I've been going to Superia for 30 years. Whenever I'm in Santa Barbara, and I think McDonald's knows that nobody in the world wants to have Taco Bell delivered to them. It's all, Taco Bell has done a good job with experience. The kids go to Taco Bell because they know that it's a cool place and they have cool food, and whenever I take the kids to Taco Bell, we get a positive outcome. So the substitutes, Taco Bell does not want to be a delivery company. McDonald's, well, you know what? It's all depends. Customer bargaining power, does the customer, DoorDash creates a whole new Porter's Five Forces that I invite you to make. I mean, if I can get some of these local favorites delivered, I mean, liquor, they're going to deliver it. Okay. If Art's Delicatessen can suddenly be delivered, that changes things. If I can get an amazing sushi, well, that changes things. 20 minutes to get sushi, that's pretty good. So the Porter's Five Forces is something that you want to go through just to talk about the landscape. If you're going to do a pestle, you might as well do a Porter's Five Forces. And you need to reassess where your business is in the world of the internet and the world of the pandemic, right? The pandemic internet, which are probably two things that are working together right now. The pandemic is driving people into e-commerce, and it's driving the rise of delivery economics. The pandemic is endangering the experience economy, obviously. So next we undergo what's called the business process modeling notation. And let me write this out for you. The business process modeling notation. And BPMN is what industrial engineers do in order to model the way that a business process should work. And it uses a flowchart language to talk about how several different people will coordinate and send messages back and forth to each other. This is the way I like to do it. So you have somewhat of a customer, and you have the cook, and you have a dispatch perhaps, and you have messages that they're sending to each other. And you make this before, not just before you make a piece of software, but you make a BPMN when you are creating a new business process. And I just want to engage. Okay. Yep, I'm just looking at the chat, and a student just said, Instacart just delivered my groceries during this lecture. Well, I hope I'm not keeping you from getting your groceries. I hope that you can keep the headphones on, the Bluetooth headphones on, while you get the Instacart. Good friends of ours. So the business process is what you need to envision, because the business process is the most concrete realization of your means. So you take the vision of whatever you're trying to do, and you express it as a BPMN. So BPMN is the most critical visual expression of what you're trying to accomplish. And then from there, we go to create user interfaces. And user interfaces, I'm trying to get a good... the UX is very critical, where students are encouraging me to open this tab. But what you're really talking about is, and I hate it when it does that. So you're really talking about the screens that are related to the mobile app. And what's happening here is you have, and let's see if somebody will allow me to open that. Nope. These are the different screens that the user goes through when they're in the process of using a mobile app. So they start on this screen, and if they click this button, they go over here, and then they can press the back button and go back here, and then go here. And this is the navigation through the different screens. And this is the user experience. In my opinion, should there be a lot of pictures when you do a user experience? The answer is pictures make people buy things. You should have a very pictorial, visual kind of UX that treat the customer like a child. Don't make them read a whole bunch of stuff. Deal with pictures and visual experiences. People say yes when you describe a Big Mac or some Chicken McNuggets Or even better, if you describe McDonald's fries, you don't describe them with words, you describe them with pictures. Make the app a very pictorial experience and make it more pictorial. This goes back to the SWOT, where there's an opportunity for McDonald's if they just make a much more pictorial app than DoorDash. DoorDash assumes that you already know what's there. Does that make sense? They already assume that you kind of know what all this is. And I don't know if this is a strength or not. I don't know if there's a lot of orders coming in through, it looks like they engage in product photography, that's fine. But you probably need to make a pictorial expression of your goods a very important part in order to capitalize on the opportunity properly. So a UI is something that a business person can be very effective in proposing. This is something that you all can do a mock-up. And in my impression, business people are not coders. They need to be making relationships. They need to be motivating people. They need to create the business opportunity. They need to be doing compliance, following the law. They need to be selling, and hustling, and explaining. And, that's what business people do. That has nothing to do with coding. Coding, none of that happens when you're coding. You are in a room. You are isolated. You have silence. You are a monk. You are producing tangible goods. You are producing the stuff the business depends upon. But I think that the business person can be relied upon to envision a UI succession. I think they can make what's called a wireframe and a mock-up. I think you all will be just fine with doing that. And once you supply that to a developer, the developer will go to town. The developer will go ahead and figure out how to make the UI that you've asked for happen. I've been doing this for a number of years where you know how to make it happen and you're waiting for the business person to make the decision as to how this should work. What are you looking for? Only the business person can tell us that. If we're asking the tech person, well, I'm sure the tech person could do about 70% of it perfectly. But it's really up for the business person to supply all of these, broader strategic, things. But I'll be very clear. The software engineers are the highest paid people because they can do all this stuff. The software engineers, they're not going to business school, but they can just read about it and do it. That's why the world supposedly is being eaten by software, is because, the MBA has to supply something that the software engineer cannot do. Very simply. So from there, once we know what our UI is, we go to design the database. And we go to specifying the tables and creating the tables, such as you guys did very early this year. And then from there, we create a ERD. And then I think our students can participate and be good at that. And then from there, we code the software and then we undergo testing, where we unit test to see that the small components are working. Then we integrate to see that they work together. Then we try it in the wild to see that things are firing when we ask for them. And then we undergo acceptance, where we ask real users to give us their opinion. And so that in a very quick nutshell, in a half an hour, is the software development lifecycle. And there are many, many opportunities for each of you to play integral roles in these kind of challenges. And so I'm glad I began my talk kind of stapling you guys to the wall and kind of forcing you to consider, which industry do you feel for? Which industries really are making an impact on your lives? And then I'm saying, look, there's ample opportunity for you guys to engage in these new technology innovations within these classical, traditional economic businesses. Does that make sense? So that's very good for today. That's our part one. Thank you.